Now we start with Russian news. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that Russia successfully has tested its nuclear-powered Poseidon underwater drone, describing the test as a huge success. Speaking at Moscow's Mandrika hospital during a visit with wounded soldiers, President Putin has stated the test marked the first time a nuclear propulsion system was successfully launched on the autonomous torpedo. Let's listen into what he has said.
Вчера провели еще одно испытание, еще одного перспективного комплекса. Это подводный безэкипажный подводное изделие «Посейдон», тоже с ядерной энергетикой.
The Poseidon is an autonomous, nuclear-powered underwater drone, also described as a super torpedo capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads. First unveiled in 2018, it is designed to operate at high speeds of up to 100 knots and at depths of up to 1,000 meters, making it difficult to detect or intercept. President Putin has stated that the Poseidon's power significantly exceeds that of Russia's most advanced intercontinental missile, the Sarmat. The weapon is intended as a strategic second strike system capable of bypassing missile defenses to target coastal cities, naval bases, or aircraft carrier groups. Local reports have claimed that a Poseidon detonation could generate a radioactive tsunami, contaminating coastal areas and rendering them uninhabitable for decades. Now, for this discussion, we welcome Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Ukrainian Defense Minister, joins us live from Riga. Thank you very much, Glenn, for joining us again. Good to see you. Thank you. Now, looking at this, how does this test of Russia's Poseidon underwater drone alter the global strategic balance and nuclear deterrence dynamics, if it does? And what challenges does this system pose to Ukraine in particular, or other areas in Europe?
Okay. Well, I mean, the first thing we have to look at is this actually true? And if it's just coming out of Putin's mouth and not out from anybody else, not out from the sort of the international system that tracks Russia, then I have grave doubts about actually whether there's any truth in the matter. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, for the first time they've done something. Well, in the first place, there's a difference between being a nuclear-powered missile, which I have grave misgivings and thoughts about, and a nuclear warhead missile. Those two things mustn't be confused, because if you're actually making a missile that's going to go for 14,000 miles and it's got a nuclear engine inside it, I can't see exactly what their intention is of telling anybody that they've actually got this far. Because normally when you've got something that's secret and it's very, very clever, the first thing you do is use it so that the opposition is caught by surprise. So what Putin has done is, if it's real, he's given away surprise. I don't think that's the case. I think that what he's done is trying to make people frightened. So I have grave doubts about it. Okay, if it works and it's carrying a nuclear warhead, then of course he's game-changed everything. Because the rest of the world is not going to be very happy with him attacking somewhere with nuclear weapons. If it's a conventional warhead, which I suspect any of their missiles are, then actually the amount of damage it can do is actually not that much, because it's underwater. They're not going to hit any Ukrainian military ships, because there aren't any of any size. So the best they can do is drive it into a port, and the only one they can do that to is Odessa. So if we don't see anything into Odessa in the next 5-6 weeks, then we can be absolutely sure that it was another Putin bluff just trying to make people worried and frightened.
And giving the benefit of the doubt here, as you say, Glenn, if do you think it is working on what Putin's intentions were on getting people frightened towards Ukraine? Or do you think Ukraine will step up and try to make something like this?
Oh, yeah, Ukraine's not going to take any notice of this at all. None whatsoever, because there's really nothing they can do with it of any seriousness to damage Ukraine because it's underwater. So you can forget about it worrying Ukraine. It's more likely to worry, if it's real, it's likely to worry, Britain or Norway or people that have got naval bases that could actually be destroyed. But then that missile's got to be fired, and where are they going to launch it from? Murmansk, which means basically no matter what distance they go, it can only really attack Norway or Great Britain, Scotland, somewhere like that. So, and I don't think anybody in Britain or Norway has raised any worries about this so far. So I just have my doubts.
And what countermeasures or technological adaptations should these countries that you've mentioned, such as Norway, consider in response to Poseidon's capabilities, giving them the benefit of the doubt?
Then you can only have counter-drone drones of some sort, or counter-drone missiles that actually, when you've actually identified that this missile is coming towards you under the water, that you fire another drone back at it. But given that the amount of places it could actually attack in the north is quite large, I don't think anybody's going to bother doing anything, to be honest, because it would mean huge amounts of money. If after perhaps Putin fires one and does do damage, then I think you will see an awful lot of action from countries who are worrying that they will be next. But if there's no firing and it's only talk, then I don't see we're going to get anything. They're going to do anything, sorry.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Glenn Grant for joining us and sharing that insight as an ex-advisor to Ukrainian Defense Minister. Thank you very much. Now we stay in the region. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that Ukrainian forces in the cities of Kupiansk and Pokrovsk are currently blocked and surrounded by Russian troops. He has urged the political leader of Ukraine to make decisions regarding the safety and fate of civilians trapped in these areas. Putin has further added that Russia is ready to provide access to journalists to report from the encircled zones, highlighting Moscow's claimed openness in the operation. He has also stated that overall, Russian forces are making progress across multiple fronts in Ukraine, signaling continued advancement of Russian military operations. Meanwhile, Ukrainian military has issued a statement saying that it has hit 2 Russian oil refineries and gas processing plant. The attack was severe and caused explosions and fires at the sites. The strikes targeted Russia's Mariinsky refinery and the gas plant in the town of Budenovsk. These recent Ukrainian attacks target Russia's core economic and military capabilities, causing disruptions in fuel supplies and generating pressure from the local population. However, Russia has also caused significant damage to Ukrainian civil infrastructure by targeting energy grids, leaving several hundred people without electricity. The front line remains active in the war amid talks of using frozen Russian assets by the European Union and new missile systems deployed by Russia. Now for this discussion, we welcome Raymond Vickery. He's a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Raymond, for joining us again. Good to see you. Raymond, looking at this news, what could be economic consequences that could arise from the European Union's discussions on using frozen Russian assets, and how could this affect their reputation moving forward?
Well, thanks very much for having me. Peace like war must be waged, and you've got to have a strategy and you've got to have partners. unfortunately, at this point, from a U.S. perspective, we don't really have a strategy. We lurch from pillar to post in trying to meet whatever the challenge is for the day. That having been said, it's perfectly apparent that Putin is at this time very much concerned about sanctions. There's going to be a discussion tomorrow between President Trump and President Xi. Sanctions of the oil companies will be a part of that, already being discussed with India. And then you have the question of the assets being frozen. So the squeeze is being put on Russia economically. And the counterattack from Putin is one of information warfare. It must be remembered that this war was caused by the worst breach of the UN Charter in 80 years when Russia invaded contrary to its agreements in the Budapest Agreement of 1994. Which said, Ukraine, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we Russia, we US, we UK will guarantee your independence and security. With that breach, Russia is embarked upon trying to reestablish an empire. The endeavor here is to be able to stop this without getting us into a nuclear war. That's the reason that there is resort to the economic freezing of assets, the sanctions, the tariffs which have been put on in some cases to try to get Putin to understand that the way forward for Russia and for his greatness is not to conquer territory and try to reestablish the old Russian Empire, but to compete peacefully. So the information coming out of Russia and from Putin this day and yesterday is really has to be discounted as part of an information warfare on the part of Russia to try to make it look inevitable that Kiev is going to collapse.
Yes,
that hasn't occurred over the past 3 years. It was supposed to take a week. The Russians have been talking about conquering this town of Pokrovsk for the last 14 months. That's when it was going to be done. The question of being surrounded seems to be one of information warfare.
Building on your answer about information warfare, what are the potential military and political implications of Russia offering journalists to access to encircled zones amid this information warfare between both sides? And what do you think could be their political motive over here?
Well, the political motive is to try to get some third party to say that what is coming out of Putin's mouth is true. If there are journalists who accept the Russian offer, you can be sure that there are going to be restrictions and input from the Russian side to get these journalists to try to authenticate what's being said, some of the fabrications, to provide some grounds for it. As your previous guest has indicated, you cannot accept as reality what comes out of the mouth of Putin because he's in a desperate situation. Facing freezing of assets, facing sanctions, and if you can cut off the economic wherewithal to Russia, it's not going to be able to continue its military program of aggrandizement. So I think this offer to journalists to come in is to try to find some journalists who are compliant to give them the Russian side of the story, to let
Raymond, we have, it seems like we have lost you over there, but I would like to thank Raymond Vickery for always joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Now we move on.